Welcome to another episode of Cantina Chronicles. Just to get it out of the way, it's just Ben and I in the cantina tonight.
Here we are.
Unfortunately, Grant has caught a case of the coaxium pox.
It's a good one.
Thank you.
Good one. Did you come up with that earlier or just now?
Literally with 5 seconds ago, because I realized, oh no, I need to come up with something clever, and Grant's not here, so I'm really buggered. So did the best I could with 5 seconds.
Not bad. I like it. I like it. Yeah. Poor Grant, man. It was something late, and we will miss him. But looking forward to get his commentary on this book in the future sometime.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So here we are. Crimson Climb. E.K. Johnston. This is a you had said something actually, Adam, in previous weeks that stuck with me. You're saying, you kind of threw it in like at the, hour 2.5 of one of our podcasts.
I was coherent at that point. All right. I'm so fascinated to know what I said.
Yeah, you said, you feel that like the young adult Star Wars books sometimes are the best Star Wars, or like the most Star Wars.
Yeah, I would say the most Star Wars. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I like to measure my Star Wars on a scale of Star Wars. Just meaning like
that seems fair
in terms of like not in terms of like what's the best literary or what's the best, because my argument will always be, I feel like of all the series, just kind of give you an example of my scale of the Disney Plus TV series, Ahsoka to me feels the most Star Wars of any series so far, and Andor feels the least Star Wars of any Star Wars movie we had before. I loved Andor. That is not a slight on Andor, right? Like, yeah. I think it's wonderful. That's the one I want to rewatch like right now the most. But in terms of like what gives me the Star Wars feels, it was Ahsoka. And similarly, I feel like the young adult novels, because I mean, at the end of the day, Star Wars movies are written for younger adults. I feel like there's definitely stuff there for everyone, but we got hooked on it when we were kids for a reason,
Exactly. Yeah. That always seems to be, they do seem to try to B4 quadrant and really, give something for the adults. Like Andor is case in point, and that is a very adult show. But yeah, I mean, traditionally, it's focused on kids, and the kids are the main characters.
Yeah.
And everything that's going along with that. But yeah, this book, I mean, the last few that we've got have blown me away. And I love E.K. Johnston stuff, and maybe it's just been a minute. I mean, she wrote the Ahsoka novel, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then she did the full Queen's trilogy about Padme.
Yeah, which is amazing. Which
is fantastic.
It's so good. And like she does I had the phrase down earlier, my brain was thinking about it, but she does character interaction really well in terms of just
exactly
inner monologues, people interacting. She threads a needle that I'll talk about a little later that I didn't realize was a needle that needed to be threaded in Solo until I read this book. The other thing that I think she does well. The other thing I want to say too is about like young adult novels. Also, it's a bit of it's actually the perfectly named type of book, but maybe the most misunderstood in terms of like you hear young adult, you think Harry Potter, right? And one of the things of Harry Potter, who I forgot who wrote that. Oh, well, I guess I can't give them any credit. Who wrote those books is that the first one is written at the age of which Harry is, and every novel is. So by the time you get to the end of that series, I think Harry's like 19. So it's written by like a 19-year-old. And so those are all young adult though, right? But if you go back and read like the Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, depending on what country you're in, it's really easy reading. It feels like you're reading an 11 or 12-year-old's writings, right?
Yeah.
And it's not because that author became better at writing. It's because they decided to increase the level. And that's the point to say, like, E.K. Johnston is writing a young adult novel meant for teenagers or above. Like, there's grisly, gruesome stuff that happens in this book. We will talk about Dryden Voss's use of his weapons.
Petars.
Yeah, the petars is violent. I listened to this, by the way, and there's some interesting sound effects that happen throughout the thing that I'm like, I didn't know if I need to hear that. But also, like, I think I've talked about this before. In new Star Wars EU, they're okay using current swears, which is odd. They drop an S-bomb in this
really?
book, which
I missed it.
Yeah, I'm not clutching my pearls or anything. I don't have any problem with that, especially because if these are based on PG-13 movies. fine. It's just funny to read that, right? I never expect that in a
Yeah.
Star Wars, and it takes me out for a second. But that's just a point. Like you're not having an 11-year-old reading this book, right? These are for, I would say, like PG-13 or above, like a Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me till late in the book, and I was like, oh wait, this is like a young adult novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I'm nothing. No part of this made me feel like this was targeted towards anyone younger than my old man self.
Yeah.
The only thing that I thought was missing, but I mean it makes sense in canon. It's like there's zero sexual tension, love interest,
No. Yeah, that's a good
sexual
point.
advances between Dryden Voss and Amelia Clark. Sorry, I'm gonna have to use their names interchangeably.
Yeah,
Qi'ra.
fair enough. No, that's really interesting that you mentioned that. That's kind of missing because a lot of it is remembering Han, and we'll talk about that
Yeah,
before. But it's true; she has no at all romantic connection to anyone, right, in this
yeah,
organization, and I was wondering if we were going to get lecherous Dryden Voss, and it wasn't there, right? Like
yeah,
he is a psychopath, right?
yeah,
And very
yes,
much so, and he controls people physically, domineeringly, right? Which is, I think, told horribly accurate in this book of just him using his physicality to dominate someone who's so. I mean, Qi'ra is tiny because Amelia
yeah,
Clark is a tiny human in real
right.
life, and so does a good job of that. But it doesn't feel sexualized or romantic, right? It just feels
Yeah,
a power move. Yeah.
yeah, and that was the only thing that stood out because I think there's so many, so much media I consume that would naturally be
Hmm.
like, well, if we're gonna really make this bad guy a bad guy, he's got to force himself sexually on
Yeah.
his underlings
Yeah.
and stuff. Um, and that was absent. But I think that's like Star Wars can just do that. Be like,
Yeah.
it's the galaxy far, far away.
Yep.
This makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about them and what's going on, and it could be
Yeah.
business reasons, it could be personal reasons, but it's not happening.
No. Yeah.
And it just that was the only thing where I was like, oh, okay. But I loved this book. I loved
Me
every
too.
second of it. I
Yeah.
ran it. I mean, I feel like I read it in like 5 minutes.
Hmm.
I just such a joy to lay down in bed at night, and it was one of those books where it was like I'm just gonna read one chapter and go to sleep, and I read
Yeah.
like half the book,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yep.
whoops,
Same. Yeah.
no regrets. So yeah, really fun. And just to be clear for our listeners, if you're listening to this and you don't plan on reading this book, it takes place essentially from the moment that Qi'ra is left behind in the space port at the
Yeah.
middle of the beginning, really, of the
Yeah.
solo standalone
Yeah. Right in the
film.
middle of the first act. Yeah.
And then it goes up until, and this spoiler wall's up right now. So
Yep. We're gonna
if
spoil
you haven't
everything.
read this,
So
yeah, everything's getting spoiled here. Until she does a job for the guy. I forget how they actually refer to him, but he's like the one above. It's there is a force that's commanding 5 different
all of the
criminal
crime
factions.
syndicates, which I think is a bit of a
Well,
revelation.
I don't
in
know
this.
about all, but the 5 big ones.
The 5 big ones. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the Hawk Cartel, Black Sun, which was fun.
Yeah.
Crimson Dawn, actually, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the who are the Spice Runners?
This is where we miss. Oh, the Pikes.
The Pikes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then another one.
The Crimera Mora Syndicate.
Crimora, yeah, which I've heard before, and
Yep.
it's not. And yeah, I was looking through my notes. Thank you
I
for.
think it's the one that gets displaced by the droid Gatra.
Oh right,
Yeah, I think so because
there are droids in it, but the droid Gotra eventually takes them over.
I mean, we just need more. I need to know more about the crime syndicates because it seems like for some reason there can be only 5. Like that is the rule of the land. It's like it's like the Premier League of soccer, right? Someone gets goes relegated, and someone gets promoted, and apparently the droid got promoted.
Yeah, which is cool. Yeah, I don't really, I think they're just trying to keep it simple for us, and it's not simple. I remember we had a whole episode when we were, I think, thinking about Solo before that movie came out, and trying to guess what. Oh no, Mandalorian. Oh no, Boba Fett. Sorry,
Right,
it's all
Boba Fett. Yep.
5 years of podcasting is mushing into each other. But yeah, and we were wondering what syndicates would be in there, and because there is like a transition of power that happens after the Empire falls. And there's new after in the the Mandoverse after Return of the Jedi there are new factions.
Yeah.
But yeah, but for this one, those are the big five, which are fun. Scenes with huts and all that. And then apparently, this one person is pulling the strings. And
Yep.
if you've seen Solo, cover your ears, casual Jason.
Oh, right. Hopefully he's seen it by now. Who knows?
I know. I almost feel like I just want to wait for him to do it, and then we should bring him on because I can't wait to watch Solo again after reading this book.
Me too. I almost watched it. I would have watched it if I had time, and I just finished it this afternoon. Yeah.
It is, so this book doesn't tell you who this person is, but we know from the movie that it's definitely Maul. So it ends before the first time she meets Maul.
Yeah.
So I feel like, if you read the epilogue, E.K. Johnston says, hopefully there'll be more of these, and that could mean more Star Wars books in general, or more, I don't know, Qi'ra-verse.
I think more Qi'ra-verse. I'm guessing, I mean, it felt very much like reading that first Queen's Hope. I can't remember. The names are not helpful to figure out first, second, third in it, the trilogy. Yeah. But, I mean, she seems to write these characters in trilogies. It seems like a very tidy way to end, part one, right? And then next is going to be her interactions with Maul. And I good for her for writing. Hopefully there'll be more. She is a known entity. She is someone who writes really well for Star Wars. So my guess is that book's already written, and I'm just waiting for the announcement. Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah, you had actually mentioned this earlier on when we first started talking about this book, and it came on our radar that she might, hopefully, could do another trilogy like she did with Padme Amidala. Mm-hmm. Which is, I mean, that's ambitious because there's been so much written about her in the comics afterwards. She'd probably have to squish it all in this weird time period. Transitioning from White Worms to, because like really where she is at the end of this book, I figure Han Solo could come waltzing through the door at any time. But
wait, so you mean by the end of the epilogue, or you mean by the end of the main? Yeah, because we don't know how much time is between, because there's no real years or dates given how much time she spent in these areas, right? It's kind of like kind of skips ahead a little bit.
But it's almost in real time. Like it's like, and then this happened, and today I did this, and the next day I did this, and then so there's not a lot of time jumping in this novel,
and it feels
like cool.
How much time? Because we jump, how long in Solo? We jump like 10 years, right after Qi'ra and Han split up. I'll have to double check, but it's a bit of time when they jump because he's supposed to be like a teenager, and then through the armors. Maybe it's 5 years. I got to check the timeline. I'll check the timeline in a second.
Yeah, I should have checked that.
Well, it's harder too when there's like two of us, because usually this is where I would just go real silent and start Googling.
I'm just going to do my monologue now.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like there's time in terms of there's still plenty of ground to go, I feel like. And because you're not specifically saying time frame in this, and we don't know when Qi'ra first met Maul, that you could easily fit two more stories in here, because in reality, I feel like that happened with and I can't remember, but I feel like that happened with the Handmaiden's Tale, the tale that, like, shouldn't say it that way, the Queen's Guard tale series, that like the first book covered a lot more time than the second two books. I feel like the second and third book were really, really just focused on a single mission, very short period of time. Which I'm hoping we get a little more of that. I really like her character development, her character study. I guess let me say now, before I forget, kind of the thing that the needle that I needed threaded, or didn't realize I needed threaded, is that, like, so in Solo, we get Han's side of the, weirdly, Han seemed obsessed with Qi'ra, like, I'll come back for you, right? And then in that movie, it almost seems like he completely kind of forgot about Qi'ra until, like, bumping into her on the Vermilion, right? Like, that, to me, you watch that movie, it's just like, which is like, he's escaping from being a soldier. It's not like, whatever. We don't get much of his inner monologue. And then we meet up with Qi'ra, and she's instantaneously charming. She seems to actually care for Han, and then leaves him at the end of the movie. But I watched every time I watch that movie, and I've watched it a lot. It's one of my like go-to comfort Star Wars movies. I don't ever begrudge Qi'ra's move, right? It never feels like you never dislike the character. And I think this book did a good job of kind of painting out that why. Like she does have Han. Like, there's this really sweet through line through this
Oh
book.
yeah,
Every
she's
time
always
she
thinking of
needs to
him.
smile, all she does is think about Han. And anytime she
Yeah,
needs a genuine
same.
smile, it's really lovely, right?
Yeah,
But you also get why that same person would then, even after getting back together with Han, leave him, right? Like
yeah,
just she is
yeah.
so desperate in this. And it's all about survival. This whole book is about her learning to be constantly in survival mode.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a little hectic like that because, just how she survives the white worms. They should have really put her to death for what she had done, and she squeaks through that. She gets sold off into like slavery for some other scumbag and
Yep.
weasels out of that, and then starts to be able to use her smarts and her abilities to make something of herself, and it feels so real. It's so visceral.
It's very visceral. Yeah, that's a perfect word for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there with her, and it's like she's scared all the time. She's starving all the time. She's cold all the time. Like, yeah, it's just written beautifully, and it's so easy to follow along with, and be in her corner.
Yeah.
So yeah, super great. So the answer is 3 years because
Okay.
Han Solo was in the military for 3 years
3 years. Okay. Which
in the
this
Empire.
you could almost say like this feels like year one,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And then maybe year two, year three. Like you could absolutely do that because it doesn't feel like a ton of time has passed, right?
Yeah,
It sounds like months between being traded, quote unquote, between
yeah.
these groups of individuals. But yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to know about Han Solo in those 3 years, there is a short run of comics
Yeah.
called Han Solo Imperial Cadet,
Right.
and they're
They're
fantastic.
really good. They also introduce you to
Bylord Valance.
Valance. Yay, our favorite character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Reintroduce
Yeah.
the Star Wars world to
Yeah.
Bylord Valance, who will never die.
I don't
Apparently,
know. Hopefully, we're coming to an end based on the comics, but
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah.
Hmm.
So fantastic stuff. One of my favorite things, like in addition to her fantastic writing, and how she writes characters and interactions, she did like she pulled something out of Chuck Wendig's like folder, and maybe she did this in the Queen's
Yeah, I can't
trilogy,
remember. Yeah.
but there are these little like all italics mini chapters,
Yep.
and they tell about various parts and various times of her history with no context.
Hmm.
And they conclude with one of these as well, which was super fun. A lot of
Yeah.
them are just like her and Han, scrapping around some stuff, some scenes we've seen
Right.
in the film, but from her point of view and in her monologue and what's going on there. And then at the end, it actually pushes ahead a scene which was just a couple of pages. It was like one cell, I think, at the end of Crimson Reign.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the end of Hidden Empire.
Hidden Empire. Yep. Exactly right. Hidden Empire. Yeah. So,
Which is the end of her run,
which we
yeah.
just talked about 4 episodes or so ago, I feel like, but
Yeah.
a little while ago. But yeah, so we get this thing of we jump ahead in the comic and the book to the end of Return of the Jedi after the second,
Yeah.
Death Star is destroyed, and I love that we see her in the comic. We see her at a bar, just kind of drinking alone in a booth by herself. She looks somewhat despondent, right? And
Yeah.
and I just there's one of the behind the scenes I just need to know what came first, right? Or was it in parallel discussion this scene? Because
Yeah.
the writing and the look are perfect in terms of what's going through her brain, which is basically like she just failed. She failed and someone else,
Yeah.
got the win and she didn't do it and no one will know. But the thing about this, it's just like it's also like I just feel like Johnston is just like I feel like she wrote this to be like, I dare you not to give me a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Like I dare you to not let me answer this question because she sees someone walking up to her at the bar and it's just like I knew it would be you, basically, is kind of the end of it.
Yeah. And all you know is there's a hand and a sleeve and a robe, which
Yep.
is pretty much anyone in the galaxy.
Be anyone.
Yeah. And that's a nice fun mystery that she doesn't have to answer if she doesn't want to, but after, and I'm sure, I think the comics came first. She credited a lot of the comic writers, not just the ones people that worked on her series, like other writers as well. It was like Sewell and Pack and
Sewell was the main force behind the Crimson Reign or Crimson, Hidden Empire. All of those, I think he does, and Dark Droids. All of those, he does kind of the main ones because he's a creative. he's like the creative person over at Star Wars now. Like he's brought in for creative storyteller, even in the movie, TV stuff, and everything.
Then they're
Yeah.
listening to us too, because it's like, I mean, I could make a 6 or 7 person Mount Rushmore of Star Wars writers, and it's just like, it's just money in the bank. Whenever they make anything, it's fantastic, and it doesn't.
Yep.
It's like, okay, in the background of this one scene in Return of the Jedi, there's a feather on a table. You need to give me, 600 pages. They'll be like, yep, and it'll be the most like captivating 600 pages you've ever read.
Yeah.
So speaking to the failure, just for other people, I'll just do a little procedural comment here. I'm not going to sum up everything that happened, but ultimately, we know from the comics that Qi'ra leads Crimson Dawn. Sorry.
Right. Yep.
And with the shadow mission of destroying the Sith, of taking down the fascists at the head of the galaxy.
Yeah. And that's the key difference, is she's not interested in getting rid of the Empire. She's kind of agnostic about rebels or Empire. She just wants to end the Sith, which is really telling, right?
Yeah.
Of what she went through clearly with Maul.
Right, exactly. And Maul is the answer there. So that dovetails perfectly with the Maul that we see after this book, in right before A New Hope, in Clone Wars season 7. We see some Maul, and we understand that like he understands the full scope of things now in the Empire, and he also wants to take revenge against Palpatine. And Vader. Well, just Palpatine at that point.
Right.
But so it all the pieces fit already, right? We know that somehow, and I'd be fascinated to learn the dealings between like what sort of tutelage Qi'ra gets from Maul.
Yes, me too. Yeah, that's the other reason there's got to be a sequel to this book. How do you not if you're Star Wars, how do you not have that story be told? Because it's not going to happen in a series. It's just not, which is fine. That's one of the glorious things about being a completist around Star Wars media, is that like every time if I know something's not going to be made into a TV show, I don't worry, because there'll be a comic or a book that I know I will read.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, this story, as I was reading it, I was just like, I'm so glad this is a story, because it's like you really get into the characters' heads in ways you can't do in other media. And it was fascinating. Like, I just loved the inner workings of all the random, like criminal factions, and sort of how they operate, how they, fit into the larger economy of the galaxy, sort of pecking orders and how they're created and how you maneuver within them. And like the different operating methods, different tiers, like obviously Crimson Dawn is like first class organization ruled with an iron fist, but it is classy, before everything else.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about Dryden Voss in a bit, but I that's, to me, almost feels like the one missing element in all of Star Wars live action media, be it TV show or movie, is like, okay, we got our rogues and our scoundrels and our Jedi and our politicians. We've gotten all of like main stories around those people, spies.
Yeah.
But we need something surrounding the Syndicate. I mean, I know that's what, we can talk about. It's George Lucas's, fabled TV series that he'd written all the scripts to and was just waiting for the technology to catch up, right? The Underworld.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff. Underworld. Yeah, and I'm not saying like we should do that necessarily. I haven't read those scripts. I don't know if they're any good, but like it feels like the element that it's also weird too, right? Because they know that's what George was kind of thinking of doing. It's just odd that we haven't gotten. So it seems like, who wouldn't want that, right? Like Sopranos in space.
Yeah, exactly. I bet I would be fascinated to read those scripts and to see them come together. If George is bored and wants to do a pet project, I think that would be a great use of his time. But it is sort of fascinating. And then specifically the like sort of higher end, criminals, and sort of what the nice, what the finer life in the galaxy looks like. That's pretty cool. And we don't get a lot of that. It's, usually people just scraping by trying to make a living and stuff, but it's like, I'd like to see these sort of high flying, groups and how they work more than just like a background or a scene or a busted up, meeting or something. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's like the, Guillermo del Toro, Jabba
Yeah.
script or project, which was a great movie and fun to see. But like we could talk about it, but like Dryden Voss and Crimson Dawn seemed like the perfect thing to tell because
Yeah.
like it's hard to watch a Jabba the Hutt series. The movie would be great, but like where he's the main character because like he's gross. He's just gross.
He's just gross all the
And
time. Yeah.
it's hard to like have any type of connection with him or be enamored by him. And I think Dryden Voss is like I have to say hands down my actually I'll say my favorite
Villain?
um post like my favorite Star or favorite Disney era villain. Like
Yeah.
because it's just you got to remove, I mean Palpatine, Vader, come on, right? Like they're always going to be number 1, number 2 in whichever order. But like
Yeah.
post that, I think Dryden Voss is my favorite villain in Star Wars
Yeah.
because he's just something different. We haven't seen it before, and like
Superior acting.
superior acting. He's so charming
Yeah.
that you like love to hate him. Like just any and E.K. Johnston does such a good job with that character that character style and just this idea of just like this temper that is boiling on the surface seems fine and then explodes into violence, right?
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Yeah, he's a fantastic character. I forget the name of the actor. I should know it. He's great in everything he does, but yeah, his Dryden Voss role will always be like my definitive because
Yeah.
I'm a Star Wars dork. But
No, totally. He played the Vision.
yes, the Vision. I remember.
I keep
that.
coming almost there, and I keep losing. He's married to Jennifer Connelly, so like I know everything about him. Can't name the actor for some reason. It'll come to us.
First class podcasting, ladies and gentlemen.
Once again, you're seeing weaknesses, the cracks forming when there's only 2 of us, not 3.
That's right. Where is all our Googles happening here? Yeah. All right. I'm not going to do it while I'm talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Oh, but I want to back up. So we got to the bar, right? Who do you think?
Oh.
She was meeting her at the bar, or was found her at the bar.
I'm gonna go with. Oh man, does she die? Sly Moore was who I was gonna say. Like one of the Emperor's people was like, I knew you were gonna do this.
Interesting. Yeah.
So people on the inner circle that actually knew the larger game that was going on during Hidden Empire.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna randomly pick, and they all wear robes too. I know like the 4 big ones died.
Yeah.
Or the 4 that we talked about, Sate Pestage and Alu or Salu.
Right, Salu,
right,
yeah.
all those guys.
Yeah.
They all bit the farm on the Death Star too, but I don't think Slimore was there. Masameda is also kicking around.
Yep.
Any of the Aftermath people are still fair game.
Yeah, Masamune is still around. I think in New Canon he was at first like the figurehead of the Empire, like the Empire before it officially was disbanded.
Yeah.
But he still would have been alive at that point, so he could have been. I think he was summarily executed at some point, but he still would have been around then, right?
Yeah, but he's not like going into dirty bars and talking to people like at the fall of whatever. Because we don't really know what planet she's on. It looks kind of like Tatooine, actually.
Could be, right? It's just
it looks like Chalmun's.
It does look like Chalmun's. Yeah, any dingy bar. Paul Bettany, by the way, is the actor's name.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
he begged his way onto that movie and like thank the Force he did.
Yeah, just I mean it's because of Ron Howard. Like because originally it was the guy who played Omar, and I can't think in The Wire. I can't think of his name. Poor guy. I'm really bad with names tonight, but yeah, he was he was supposed to be like a tiger guy,
right?
And he would have been amazing. But it's one of those things where, and he shot most of it, and then the only reason they cut him out, I always like to say, is because it's not like Ron Howard came on and said, I don't like what he's doing. He literally, because of all that weird reshooting, was committed to another movie, couldn't come in to do reshoots.
Oh, right.
And it was, and they can't, like, because of the character, they can't do it.
It needed such massive reshoots.
Yeah. So it was like Paul Bettany just kind of, I think, texted Ron Howard emails to do like, hey, I signed. Hey, is there any room for me on this on the Star Wars you're coming in? And Ron Howard's like, yeah, do you want to play the villain? We need a villain. Stat. Like, is this you? Yeah.
And he just killed it.
He was so good.
Yeah, I think that might be one of my holiday watches.
Oh, good call. Yeah, maybe
Solo.
Yeah, maybe that'll be like a bacon the turkey. Watch that while the turkey's baking. Like, my daughter will be home. But I think I can show most of that movie to my daughter. Yeah. I think there's like little things that I can kind of skip around.
They
She
skip
is
most of the gnarly stuff. The
yeah.
Terrascasi happens behind closed doors.
Oh, we're gonna talk about Terrascasi
Yeah.
in a minute. But so yeah, I love that you went to kind of the dark side because I immediately went like Han, no. Like I kind of eliminated that
Well, I mean,
immediately.
they have to be eliminated because they're on Endor. Like they're physically there.
Oh,
I,
that's a good point. It is
I mean,
happening
the
when they're on
scene
Endor, so it
is
can't
like
be
when,
any of them.
yeah, and she might have even said something about the
No, you're right because they're
Avadir. The like there
well.
might have been a couple days.
There might have been a
Um,
couple days. They could be watching it on like the newsreel like footage, right? Like could be like, after something like that happens, you watch CNN, that's all they're showing for the next 10 days. Because I had a thought because oh, that's such a good point. So all of my ideas are gone because they're all people on Endor. Because I literally was just like, well, I thought Han, I'm like, no, because they are not going to allow
yeah,
anyone to tell that story on the off chance they're going to be able to put something together live action. Like that's a story they want to hold in their back pocket until
yeah,
it can't happen. So then I was thinking maybe this dude Lando who's hanging out on my boom mic.
yeah,
I was thinking Leia.
yeah,
Because of like how much we see of Leia and Kira's interactions during Hidden Empire and Crimson Reign is really fascinating, and I
yeah,
love that idea of like the two loves of Han
yeah,
like
coming together.
always talking more than Han ever talked to his ex. Like I have
Yeah,
this like there's part of me feels like Han never reconnected with Kira. Like that
yeah.
seems like such a Han move. Like just never found her, never cared, just didn't thought it'd be too awkward. And like
He
the
shot.
like
Yeah, he
yeah
did his shot, and she like ditched him, and
yeah
he was like, "All right,
yeah
that's
because
it."
I know lots of men whose exes talked more to each other,
Yeah,
or like current
yeah,
wife and ex-wife talk to each other more
yeah.
than he did to his ex-wife. Like I
Right.
know lots of people that have
Yeah.
that story.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. It's just I tried to fit it in too, but like you think about all the people she interacted
Hmm.
with through it wasn't just Crimson Reign and Hidden Empire. I mean, she was
Right.
woven that story was woven through all of Bounty Hunters. She
Everything.
met Darth Vader. She met, all of the bounty
Yeah.
hunters, I'm pretty sure. I was like it could be Nakano Lash. I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember the witch. There's like
Oh,
the
yeah. The archivist.
archivist,
Yeah.
yes, and
Yeah.
then the other one that's like so all the Dr. Afra characters,
Yep. Yep. Like
like at some
Philo, like Kaifo Ferris. No,
Kaifon Ferris, yeah, she's one,
Ferris.
but
Does that know who you're
who was
saying?
the one that used the Sith technology,
Hmm.
but had no like force powers?
Yeah. Can't think of her name.
Nope, never. But yeah, so like that's the tier that it could go down into.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like any of the that was the funny part about Hidden Empire is like she hits the panic button and activates all of her like Crimson Reign people, and they're everywhere. They're literally
Yes. Everywhere. Yeah.
they're in the rebellion, they're in the Empire, they're all over the
They're
Empire. They're bounty
literally
hunters.
helping to construct the Death Star 2. Like
Yeah,
it's wild. Yeah.
yeah. She has people everywhere, and so it could be any one of them.
Yep. And what a great thing to do as a writer because you're just like it teases, but like it's one of those things like as a writer, she might not even know.
Yeah,
She might not. She might have like suspicions. She might be like, it'd be fun if it'd be this. I have to check with Star Wars Story Group. But you write that, it almost guarantees you a sequel, right? Especially if you're not talking about a movie, if you're just talking about a book.
yeah.
And like it could be, like you said, almost anyone in the Star Wars universe, and you'd be like, yeah, that checks out. Like
Right.
Qi'ra interacting with them. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm guessing it could be someone from this series coming back,
Hmm.
but it's like I
Hmm.
don't know who would have the resources or the
Also,
desire.
everyone dies.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You mean
So,
like in
but
Crimson Reign?
in Crimson, oh, I mean, it's meant in Crimson Climb, like in the
Yeah.
book. Like,
Yeah.
do you just mean the series in terms of like the comic series or the book?
Uh Oh, in Crimson Climb they die. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But no, there's still some people
There's a
kicking
couple.
around.
Yeah.
So the first chapter of the book is right after she's killed Dryden Voss. And actually, oh god. Is it Vernata? I don't think I have the name of I don't know who the name of the character was that walks through the door. Is it her
Is it
like
Marlo?
Margot?
Margot?
There's Margot is the
Because
yeah.
Margot's in all the comics. She's her right hand.
Oh, that's Margot.
Like crystal,
Okay.
almost looks like crystalline, almost
Yeah.
person. Like, yeah, I think that's Margot.
That's
Is
Margot.
in all
Okay,
of the
so
yeah.
Margot sort of they climb sort of in parallel and she becomes the concierge of the
Concierge.
First Light. Yeah, of the First Light.
Yeah.
And then so it could be Margot. Maybe they. Well, no, because she was there. Yeah, that would probably be make the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one? Trinia? Is that her her servant, her body person?
Yeah, her body woman.
Body servant.
Yeah.
And that sounds weird too, but
I know. It all sounds weird when you're talking about when your first word is body.
Yeah.
Anything after that.
I'm trying to think of what it was like in olden times. Men would have their manservant.
I literally almost just said manservant because that's what it was. Yeah,
because it's how could anyone be bothered to get dressed themselves?
I'm literally that's the thing. I'm literally trying to think about I watched every single season of Downton Abbey, and I'm like, what were they called? Is it valet? Yeah, valet or butler, but I don't think it's their butler because butler does the house stuff, and I think the valet is the body person. So I think it's valet.
Somewhere someone's listening to this screaming.
I know that guy who
how can you be so dumb?
No.
Yeah. And the answer is
I picked up nothing off of Downton Abbey other than the scene where Lord Grantham ulcers burst at dinner.
Barf.
Oh man, it is. If you watch it on a loop, it becomes the funniest thing you've ever seen.
I'm good, bro. I think I'm good.
I mean, for a stuffy. I mean, that show is actually not stuffy. It's actually really not because nothing in British stuff is stuffy at all. You think it's stuffy, and then you start watching, and you're like, oh no, that repression is bubbling through. Right. I don't know. Just if you don't mind watching someone spit up blood, watch it. It sounds gross. It's kind of gross, and then it becomes what is happening in the show?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Cool. All right. Well, and that was Downton Abbey Corner.
That's Downton Abbey Corner. That's no lightsaber corner.
No, none lightsabers. I know.
Nothing.
Shed a tear. And we've been kind of spoiled with lightsabers, so I guess I can let it pass.
Fair.
Just a lovely, lovely book. I do have a list of our pillars, if you wanted to sort of run through the pillars and see what's up, see if it checks the boxes. Because it's mostly for science and for me, so I don't even know if this is interesting.
I love it.
To listen to, but
it's kind of for those who are somewhat newer listeners, we went through and developed kind of what do we think every Star Wars story has? What are the key elements, the pillars, as you would say?
The pillars of Star Wars, yes.
Yeah, and so every so often when we get kind of a new thing, we'll kind of go through and check it off, and it's in some ways, I always feel it's less of a test of the thing we're talking about and more of a test of our rating system.
Yeah. So I know since everyone's asking for this, let's do it. We can do it quick. So Hero's Journey.
100%. Right? It's there.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the rating system? We could just say yes
Refusal
or no.
Refusal of the call. I don't really know, but I mean, we need to go through all the points, but it's there. She's journeying and she's a hero.
In terms of the light, maybe it doesn't fall into the exact cycle put by Campbell, but it is, someone who is reticent to do what she's doing and then becomes fully into it. It's almost the anti-hero's journey, but it's now I want to write a book called The Anti-Hero's Journey.
That's really nice. Let's workshop that. Not on air.
The academic academic is just I should totally watch all of the anti-hero stories and see if there's a different journey. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. I think the hero's journey is there.
Yes. Okay, good. Out of galaxy references. Again, this is a weird pillar that I feel like we might have retconned out of here, but I mean everything is sort of outer galaxy references, but books is a little tougher nut to crack.
I got one.
Okay.
The last chapter the last couple chapters turns into Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh, yes. Yes,
there
absolutely.
are literal booby traps taken from Indiana Jones movies, right? And so that's what I think it is. I would always argue the outer galaxy references, keep it in there. Star Wars is an homage. I mean, it started out as homage, and Lucas fully admits it and talks to him. I mean, just watch Hidden Fortress, right? And so I feel like every main Star Wars has to have an homage to something. And this has total Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And again, in the epilogue, she mentions it. She's like, I get to do this? Awesome. She's just I'm just because she wanted to write that, and she did it beautifully. And and it fit for what they were trying to do. Okay.
Yes.
Government, politics, economics, and trade. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of the economy of what it's like to have a criminal organization, especially with Thorum, and then when they have the leak, and it's they have trade routes and they're busting unions, and they're it
is about organization, right? And I think this is the biggest look, we get at what the 5 crime syndicates under Maul looks like, right? Like that party scene, which is an awesome scene where all the people from the different five crime syndicates and turns into a disaster.
Turns into a bloodbath.
So many people die horribly. Yeah, but I feel like it's not all of those things, but it is a major organization that has influence in the galaxy. So I think it on a technicality definitely fits there.
Yeah, of course. Ensemble cast, probably don't need to spend too much time with that.
Totally.
Her ensembles have a way of dying, but they're there for sure. That's like we've got the slicer, and we've got the pilots, and we've got the heavies, and we've got all that.
Yep.
So that's there. Master and apprentice, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I think the Dryden Voss like it's the dark side version of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, or it's not dark side yet. I mean, soon, we'll see how much tutelage she gets from Maul, but I mean, I guess they're more evil,
but it's also
nefarious.
That weird thing of her learning what it's like to survive in a syndicate through Dryden Voss, even if he's not teaching her out in the open explicitly, I guess is the word. I think he is teaching her implicitly through the way he kills people and what he does. Like, she learns the system and the game pretty quickly through watching and observing.
Absolutely. And we did sort of do originally we were going to do these on 3 tiers where it's either Padawan, Jedi Knight, or Master.
Yeah.
So feel free to throw that in, especially on this one. Droids, aliens, and monsters.
Oh, Padawan.
There are a bunch of aliens in the cast. The Hylobon, security guards, I think, are those like cat creatures that they wanted to have the original Dryden Voss be.
Yeah.
And there's Twi'leks, and there's Rhodians, and there's Zabraks.
So good aliens, number of aliens. It's sometimes harder to quote unquote see in books. But no creatures, right?
And almost no droids.
No droids I can think of, like a couple of that she comments on, but no.
And she hacks a droid to like get some information, or actually, she she liberates some droids, which is very much on the scale of Solo, on the flavor of Solo.
She liberates a droid and then erases the droid's memory back before she liberated the droid. Is that right? I can't remember the way. Yeah,
that was the one that was a little bit questionable ethics, but she does liberate like 3 or 4 or 5 droids before that in a different scene, and they do end up working for them. But not major characters, and no monsters.
No monsters. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would probably give that Padawan for that department, but.
Me too, especially weird considering that like temple scene at the end, that like when they were like you couldn't fit a creature didn't come out and kill a couple of them.
Right. Yeah. Or on the like just free roaming creatures in the like on that planet where they have the meeting that was unnamed, but it was like that deserted planet that if you go outside you die.
Right.
Like that actually could be an interesting thing. And then conspicuously absent creatures on the planet with the Sith temple on it.
Yeah. You would think that would be.
It's like she just didn't want to write it.
Yeah. Or just been there, done that, right? Like almost like sometimes when things are a pillar, it's just like I've done that so many times I don't feel like doing that. Yeah.
Right. Alien Worlds.
Sure. Yep.
Plenty of that. That was actually, I loved the landscape of that planet where they all met. I love that they're like, you can't really live here, but you can live here if you really like try hard.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't really support life, but you can have meetings here or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Good versus evil. Yeah. Right. She wrestles with that.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I think it is, because it's weird. As much as it's so hard with Qi'ra, I still think she's a good person at her core, and that's an interesting debate we could have, right? Like I feel like it's
she's
hard.
In such survival mode. It's like people are dying left and right. She's like, I mean, and even she admits it. It's like one of her crew members gets framed for someone else's mistake, and then she all she can think about is how this works politically for her in the Crimson Dawn.
Yeah, I feel like, totally, right? I feel like part of it is like she never does bad things for personal gain.
Yeah.
Right? It's for survival or which is maybe the most evil thing. The great is good, right? The greater good,
right.
which is difficult, but like she seems to like try to talk herself into being evil, and some of the stuff we've seen in I guess there's a couple things in Crimson or in uh the Hidden Empire. Yeah, there was that one where she sent the orphans out, or remember the orphans out.
Yeah.
Ooh. Anyway,
just like buy her some time or something, and they were like, yeah, or as a distraction, and
yeah,
she killed all the people on her fake like decoy ship.
yep.
And yeah, she sent a lot of people to die, and especially during that panic button moment that we mentioned before. Most of these people that were activated were caught and executed as traitors.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know that she's a very good character.
No.
Like, she's not. She is battling with her own internal moral compass at times, but
she's
for the
not
most part, she's trying to survive.
Yeah, she's not finger tenting evil like a Palpatine or a Dryden Voss or many of these others. But yeah, anyway. But I think you're right. I think in this book, definitely good versus evil. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are grades mostly for ourselves and our rating system, because it's like good versus evil doesn't always happen, and these are the stories that I'm most interested in. And like the last book we read too, Inquisitor Red Blade, Rise of the Red Blade. It's an anti-hero story, and it's bad things happening to good people, making good people into bad people, and that's sort of the way it goes.
And I mean, it's interesting, right? Because in that book, I think it's still there. It's just evil versus good, right? It's still, the story's still being told. Just evil is who you're focusing on in that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Swashbuckling?
Maybe a little harder, but it's hard not to have an Indiana Jones moment and not call it swashbuckling. Like have a temple raid or have a, booby traps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's swashbuckling to me. As dark as that was. Oh my God, it was such a dark scene or chapter or a couple of chapters there where they're going, because it's just like death.
It's just like people being like, and just like so nonchalantly at some point they were like, there was storytelling where she's like, no one wanted to be in the front, no one wanted to be in the back, until like the three people in the middle got roasted to death, and then no one particularly wanted to be anywhere. Like it was just really well written. I'm just like, oh, this is
and it was like, it actually was written a little bit like Martin, the way he wrote about Reek, where it's sort of like, Reek is dealing with his own, it's like his POV, but he's so like PTSD, just like broken from trauma. Yeah. And it's like the trauma of that experience. Like that's what's happening with Qi'ra. I feel like the trauma of that experience. She's just like, nope, have to survive, have to compartmentalize, can't think about these things, have to keep pushing forward. And it's like, it adds its own vibe.
And her like evaluation of Dryden Voss in that moment is kind of amazing, because she's like, he didn't set us up because he wants us to succeed and get this for his boss, but he does not care that any of us died, right? Like it's just it's fascinating of just this idea of just how little they matter to him at that moment. Yeah,
which is so great about his character, because like whenever he sees them, he's like, oh my goodness, thank you, you are the beating heart of Crimson Dawn, I appreciate your sacrifice so much. He's like faux earnest like comments, and he's like, but they just like, you don't care if any of us live.
So I know there's a chance I may not get to watch Solo, but I think before bed tonight I am going to, at least on my phone, watch every Dryden Voss scene in Solo, because that's all of like 5-10 minutes. It's not a ton, but it is. Oh, you
can probably find it on the YouTube.
Probably. I remember sitting there in the theater and just like eating that up. Those scenes where he's just like, "Oh, Qi'ra, I'm so glad you're okay. I was so worried about you." Those moments are just so good.
And she's like,
"Yeah." Remember, he eats that oyster. He's eating like oysters with that little fork. Oh yeah, love him.
No, she, EK mentions at the end how fun he was to write, and you could tell she's reveling in it. I mean, that was the most fun for me, was their interactions, because it's like fraught with peril, but like he's such a rich character, and super fun. The Force. This is a hard one, but it's there, right?
It's there. It gets it in under the wire. Yeah, right. It's one of those things where I literally was thinking about this whole thing. I'm like, oh, we're not going to get any Force. And actually, it reminds me a lot like Solo, lot of Solo, where I'm just like, we're not going to get any Force stuff, and then suddenly at the very end, though, I mean, we don't need to relitigate, him Maul lighting his lightsaber in Solo, which is like my least favorite moment in any Star Wars movie. But I'm actually fine that he's in the movie anyway. Anyway, they were.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's all good. It's good. It's good. It's great.
Yeah.
But it's perfect. It's the best thing that ever could have happened in a Star Wars
Oh,
movie.
now you're lying.
So, but in here, it felt like it made sense, right? Like Maul's trying to collect Force artifacts, which this seems to be an extremely powerful Force artifact that I don't know what they're gonna do with, because it just basically kills anyone attached to the Force if they touch it.
Yeah.
It seems to be the end of it. See, this is why, one of the main reasons I wish Grant was here, because I want to make a Man Thing reference from Marvel.
Sorry, buddy.
And no one's gonna get it. But everyone, you
have to put it in your pocket.
Anyone who touches the Man Thing burns those who know fear, and everyone knows fear, so everyone burns at the touch of Man Thing.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, I'm sure there's some relation there.
Yeah. Same like this. Anyone who has any connection to Darkseid burns, and every Force user has some light connection to the Dark Force. The Dark, yeah.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it was very unclear because it was so funny that, our POV with Qi'ra, she's completely ignorant of the Force. Completely.
Right. That's fascinating, right?
She's like I don't what are they
cultists
called? Like, she's never even heard the word Jedi before. Like,
right.
Yeah. She's like, I don't know, some religion. Like, it's like, okay. But, but there were some moments there. So the way that she got into the temple was very using the Force like. But I think it was like more you found the right spot, and then in like the Force probe allowed people that weren't Force sensitive in. Is my headcanon about what happened, how she was able to open the secret door in the obelisk.
Right, and able to touch the artifact and only feel like slight pain or some pain, not crippling, but like it is fascinating, right? But I guess to quote, I mean, and also Ahsoka helps us with this, like the Force is in all of us, right? So we all have some amount of Force. So even like she has no Force sensitivity whatsoever, but there's still Force within her, so she still feels a little bit of it.
I mean that scene is like very much. She's like, I don't know, I could just feel this thrum, and then I just like let it into my body and whatever.
Yeah.
There was also another quote I pulled. Trinia is kind of interesting. Her manservant. I'm just going with that. The quote is like from Qi'ra. How are you always so close to what I'm really thinking? Qi'ra asked.
I highlighted the same thing. Keep going. Yep.
Yeah, it was as much as she could say without admitting it was true. Oh, said Trinia blithely, I'm just good with faces. It was probably a great deal more than that, but she said it so easily that Qi'ra didn't mind accepting her explanation. And I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe she's a little more than good with faces.
Yeah, someone's Force sensitive. Someone has some connection, right? Yeah. No, I had the same thought. I'm like, that's great to add that in there of like, I love that storytelling of like what happened to all the Force sensitive kids and other people after Order 66 that weren't Anakin Skywalker, weren't going to like blow up the midichlorian test, but probably were enough to be admitted as Padawan or younglings in the temple.
Yeah.
Can we talk also? So on this planet, the Sith planet or the Sith temple, she runs into a corpse. They run into a corpse.
Yep.
And so Grant texted. We were talking a little bit earlier before he was incapacitated about what she found, but I just want to read the description of it and just confirm what we're thinking. So, so runs into a corpse and says the helmet was a design she didn't recognize. It was black and fit closer to the skull than a stormtrooper or clone helmet would. It had been designed to look sleek with a silver front piece that still glistened in the dappled sunlight under the trees. That's really nice writing. Lines had been carved in a grid pattern over most of the helmet's surface, and the eyes of whomever had worn it would have been covered. So Grant said that's an Inquisitor. Is that what you got from that?
Oh, I didn't think Inquisitor. My first thought was Mandalorian. Not that would make any sense. My second thought was a Knight of Ren because it was black with like grid.
The grid, right? I thought a Knight of Ren, right? And there's nothing. Wikipedia is failing us. There's no unidentified anything that helps us. So yeah, super interesting.
But I think Inquisitor makes the most sense because, as we know from the last book we just read, the Inquisitors are, they're all trying to hoard their own Sith relics for their own gain.
Right.
And that's the name of the game, and it's totally accepted, and it's just like, yeah, you keep what you find, or you give the Emperor everything you find, but if you want to hold something back, people do that. So yeah, I mean, I do not put it past EK that she's tying in all of these things. Like she tied in, what happened in the Ahsoka series with the Force being in all of us. She brought in the Inquisitor, like an Inquisitor, to what's going on there. The Inquisitor makes the most sense. So even though he can't be here, Grant is adding to the conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. I have two more random appearances questions.
Yes.
One is looking through Wikipedia because I was scrolling through trying to find if like they had a call on whether it was Inquisitor or Mandalorian or whatever.
Yeah.
But they and I'm sure I just missed this. They have like a straight up appearance, not like mentioned only. Doc Ondor?
Yeah, Doc Ondar was there.
I missed it. When did Doc Ondor pop up?
He was it was early in Qi'ra's rise through Crimson Reign. Like she wasn't a lieutenant yet. But it was like one of her first meetings, like parties, with Dryden Voss, and Dryden Voss introduces her to Doc Ondar.
Okay, cool.
And so he's, because it just makes sense because like he has, the hallmark of Voss's office is he has all these antiquities, from all over the place. So it makes sense.
It. Yeah. And Doc Ondor. Also, if you want to watch or read the Doc Ondor's Denim and Antiquities limited series run, super worth it. Really great. I love that character. Like, just very much just I'm a collector and just does not care about who he's selling to or doesn't have much scruples. Also looks very impressive in real life. If you go see him, go visit him.
Love a good Thorian.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is it's not it's not anywhere on Wikipedia, but I just want to read a quick quote. The Mizzy and a giant with pincers instead of hands.
Yeah. I was like trying to envision this, and it was just God, wait a second.
Scissorpunch.
Scissorpunch.
Yeah.
Wait, he was in Scissorpunch from Solo.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? Like, it's not a quote, but I mean, like, that's got to be a reference, right? Because that is like that is the best character. I mean, like there's something early in our run because remember, like they released was it through like Taco Bell, like released like cups or released like character cards. Do you remember that? And like we all went nuts. Like I remember being around your table at your old house.
Yes.
Losing our blank about Scissorpunch on air. For a long time.
I think we even did an advertisement or a bumper with Scissorpunch.
We did. Oh yeah, well, we used to try to be like creative and fun.
Yeah. That's pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic, pre-kids. Yeah, pre-baby. Yeah.
Scissor. I think it's of course it's Scissorpunch. Yeah, of course it is. Great catch.
Oh, you know what? Am I able to edit Wikipedia? Because if so, I'm just going to add them in here. I'm just going to add them in here.
Yes.
Don't worry, I'm not going to do it on air, but I will do it after we're done recording.
Please do. Yeah. The people need to know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah. Love those characters. I'm going to keep going here with heuristics. Next one, again, my favorite. Honor what came before. Presage what comes after. Always expand. I feel like this is a real one. This is a real one that they all have to like check the box because they're so consistent about doing it.
Yep.
And she does it beautifully with that little epilogue chapter.
Yeah.
It does expand and it pushes the timeline forward for Qi'ra in another unknown time.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that especially new EU is really an important thing where it's not just none of these are ever just telling an untold story.
Yeah.
To just fill in the blanks. It's always adding to the canon in an important way. Or like you said, I mean, it ends on something that like confirms, like it's wild, right? Because you finish the end of Hidden Empire, and it's just again that comic book series is just Qi'ra sitting sadly at a bar, and you're almost like, I guess that's the end of her story. She's just gonna like drink herself silly, and like this ends with this like, oh no, like just literally like you said, one panel later, someone walks in and pulls her into an adventure again. Yeah.
Which is great. I love that for her. I love that for Qi'ra. Always. I mean, even though she's like kind of gone into hiding after the failure to defeat the Sith, that she must have. I mean, she can't really show her face anywhere.
Yeah.
So pretty wild. Yeah, so they did great with that. Legacy and family. Again, we're dealing with orphans here mostly, but
Yep.
definitely legacy, right?
I think so. I think legacy, I think family, I think because one of the things that she talks about is what she's talking about the white worms, right? When she talks
Yeah.
about the worms. She talks about it as like there's no friendship here other than Han, right? It is all
Yeah.
survival. It is all just trying to out better each other. Same thing when she goes to the secondary character that I can't remember. But when she gets to Dryden Voss, there's just the first moment of her realization of just like, oh no, we're actually friends. That doesn't mean some of us won't try to kill each other, but like I have friends here,
Yeah.
right? And it feels like that kind of, found family in a way that
Yeah.
that all of them die.
I loved all those chapters about her like just like getting new clothes and like
Yeah.
having a room for the first time and like they're just like
Uh,
really special
yeah.
chapters that meant a lot.
I always want to say, E.K. Johnston. We talked a bit about when we talked about the Amidala's. I'm gonna just call them the Amidalas now
All
because
right.
that sounds better because that's what they call them in the thing. Is that like the author E.K. Johnston has spent a lot of time writing about the clothing, the clothes.
Oh yes.
And
Yeah.
and if you watch her, if you follow her on Instagram, she is a clothes horse. She loves clothes and fashion,
Okay.
and does a lot of it. And she's also actually really seems closely connected to like the name just literally dropped out of my head. I was in the middle of a sentence. The woman who plays Ashley Eckstein
Okay. Yeah.
has a clothing line called Her Universe or Her Universe,
Oh.
which is an awesome clothesline. Their thing is like people or women or people who identify as female, all shapes, all sizes, every type that you can get, super fashionable and also super geeky, like related to geek culture.
Yeah.
So that's her big push. She does a lot of designing for them, and EK Johnston likes to show off a lot of the clothes that she gets. I see her like crediting them all the time. So she loves fashion and clothing, and so to watch her kind of wrap it into these things in a way that feels organic to the characters is super fun.
Yeah. No, I anything having to do with design, I'm just such a fan. I just like
Yeah.
whether it's like cross sections of starships or like the outfit, like clothing design or the, the biomes,
Mm-hmm.
the horizon line and like, just flying into new landscapes, landscape architecture. Like I don't,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite things about Star Wars. I don't know why I just drink it up because it's so intentional and it's
Yeah.
like, and varied, but yet, yeah, I don't know. It
Yeah.
just,
And
it's fascinating.
very similar. I'm a process nerd. Like that's what
Yeah.
I've realized the older I get is like anything that like I watch any documentary, anything you're writing about process, something I don't care about, I care about. So like when you go deep on just
Yeah.
fashion or anything else, I'm like, yes, please. Like this is
Yeah.
amazing. Like I love this. And just, side note, I think the last time we talked, I did finish the Two Towers.
Oh, good.
Like great because so much of Tolkien is process nerd.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's a process nerd.
Yeah.
Like just like tell me, yes,
Oh my
give me
gosh.
3
Yeah.
pages on the backstory of this. And I'm like, yeah, love it.
Yeah. He's
You know,
like,
and
he
then
was,
yeah.
I forget the word for it, but it was like he studied languages. That was his thing.
Yes. Yep.
Which is the nerdiest thing of any nerd ever. Yeah. Yeah. I went to a semester or abroad in New Zealand actually with a linguistics major, and he's a real G. But
All right.
another tier of nerddom that I didn't know existed. So yeah, all right. Then we have Wars in the Stars, or in this case, we have No Wars in the Stars.
No, this is missing.
I mean,
but
it's a crime syndicate war. I mean, not really, because they're not even
No,
warring. I mean, there was
I'm
like
not
a
going to
coup.
give it to him.
No.
But that's
There's
okay. Again,
conflict.
there's conflict. The other thing too is I will say when we talk about books or comics, I do not feel like they need to hit all of these,
Yeah.
right? Like I feel like there's more room for this. To me, it's more of like a movie. If you're going to make a Star Wars movie or TV series within the full run of your series or full run of your movie, you have to hit all of these. With this, I more applauding that you get through. If you're able to check off like more than half of these, I would say like it's impressive. So, but no, this one is missing. It's gone. There's not
there.
any.
Yeah.
It's just not there,
Yeah.
which is okay. That's not what the story is asking
Yeah.
for. It would feel weird if you suddenly had a space battle in this movie in the middle of this book.
Of course, and then that's what makes the novels great is because You're going to the internal wars, the mental wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's it. The last one's iconic music. Obviously, that is not fair to ask of a book. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other grab bag comments or stuff that we didn't talk about? I've got a couple. If you don't mind me
Okay,
doing them.
what do you got? Yeah, go for it, please.
So towards the end of the novel, Voss is sort of telling her what role she's going to play and what role. Let me see. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, no. Again, they don't. I'm looking for a title for Maul. Like I forget what they call him exactly. But the quote is, "Oh yes," Voss says, "he's going to be very pleased with you. The Syndicate heads are all too busy, and he hasn't found anyone trustworthy enough to fetch him the artifacts he wants. You are perfect. We'll just make sure that next time you have a better crew or a more expendable one." And I wrote down, "Best job ever." Like, right? Honestly, this would be a top 5 like gig for me in Star Wars. It's just like, you've got to go fetch Sith artifacts for Darth Maul. I'd be like, yep, let's go. Give me a ship.
It's so good.
Some resources.
And again, it begs for sequelization because that's what you want, right? Is like, I just want to see the next 4 quests she's put on. And like, part of me is like, again, not to tell a writer how to write or what to do. And
no, go on.
This, ignore me. I'm dumb. I've written exactly 0 books.
Yeah.
But like, to have like the next novel be intermingling between her like discovery of Maul or training by Maul with a mission would be kind of amazing. Like, mission, come back, learn a lesson from Maul. Mission, come back, learn a lesson from Maul. It would be kind of a really fun way to do that book. E.K. Johnston, do whatever you think is best. It's better than whatever I'm thinking. But like, that's just would be a fascinating way to tell that story.
And then you'd get the sort of power struggle between Maul and Dryden Voss, sort of getting possessive over her. This is my guilty, and I'm embarrassed to be saying this on this podcast, but I've been watching in my spare time Suits on Netflix because it's there. It's problematic.
Right now, my wife, as we're doing this podcast, is watching Suits.
Yeah.
I think she was watching season 5, episode 3.
Oh my goodness. So she's ahead of me. All right, good. Well, I feel a little better about that. I can't help myself, but this book like had a lot of Suits moments. It's like, not really, characters you can't really get behind 100%. You know, like they're following the law or whatever, right? And she's like trying to maintain whatever integrity their economics of a crime syndicate, whatever. It's not very virtuous stuff here.
Sure.
But that it's the constant infighting amongst themselves is always the biggest threat. So yeah, that's the vibe I get off this book is a lot of Suits. I'm sorry, E.K. Johnston, you're better than that.
I mean, hey, to be compared to a very successful cable television show that's ran for, I asked my wife how many seasons. She said like a bajillion.
Oh, really?
I think was her reaction. Like, she's already on season 5, and I'm like, is this almost done yet? And she's like, I don't think so. Oh, but like, hey, there's worse things to be
to be compared to.
Yeah,
I mean, it goes to show how like pop whatever things they do. I do have another question for you. There was, E.K. Johnston very vague about certain things for the lore nerds like us. When she's flying in, presumably to meet Maul, she drops out of hyperspace, a striking planet, red and black in turns as clouds swirled across its surface, their cover punctured now and then by sharp spires and merciless cliffs hung below them. I mean, sounds like Dathomir to me, right?
I was thinking Dathomir, right? Yeah, I had a Dathomir or he wasn't on, like, was it Malachor? I don't think, but I don't think they had spot. But I don't think they had spires.
Yeah, it's a pretty flat planet.
Yeah, but it's Dathomir. I think. Well, is Dathomir red?
Yes.
I always thought it was green.
No, I think it's red.
Oh no, you're right. From like Jedi Fallen Order, it's red. 100%. Yeah, good call. It's got to be Dathomir. He must have ended up on Dathomir back then.
I think it's just another massive hint. It's like, in case you're wondering who she's going to meet, she's going to meet him. And like they just like. But I just find it odd. I mean, I don't know. I guess it makes sense that that's where he would be, like, call his home base and where he'd be working out of. But, it's a little on the nose. But
totally
okay, sure.
No, I love it. Yeah,
right. Because this all happens before. this all happens before Rebels, and he goes back there. So he's
Yes.
clearly has a familiarity with that spot,
Yeah.
and yeah.
This is like the biggest stretch of Maul. We have no idea what he's up to, right? Because like we know end of Clone Wars, we kind of know he's taking control of the 5 syndicates is basically where we left him ish.
I mean, but he had like gained and
No,
lost control of the Mandalorians, and then
yeah.
I think so in the Ahsoka arcs in season 7 that aren't war related, like early ones, I think she discovers that there is a person above the Pikes, and I think that's where we first see him cobbling together these syndicates.
Yeah.
So I thought it had kind of fallen through for him, but I guess not. No, like that still, he's still leading them. But he had tried.
We at least know he's on that mission. Yeah. That seems to be what he's trying to do, I guess.
I thought I'd seen him try to like bring people together. I think when he was leading Mandalore, he was trying to sort of like before he did the Mandalorian thing, he tried to, put a union together of criminal elements, and it fell through. But it was Black Sun and the Pikes as well then. So back in the like Savage Oppress days. So I don't know. It's all very confusing.
It's very confusing. I also feel like, this is a not a non sequitur, but it's kind of a random observation. Is that like Kristen Baver, I think is her name.
Baver,
I mean, Grant would know Baver. She wrote that like Skywalker, a family at war. I can't remember that really neat like in-universe biography written about the Skywalker family. Yes. And I want more of those. Like, I need someone to write, and it's not just Wikipedia. Like, Wikipedia is great.
Yeah, sure.
It's wonderful. I may have already added Scissor-Punch to the Crimson Climb.
As we were talking. Good for you, Adam.
Thank you, multitasking. I was also coding. Like, I was in the middle of it. Like, you have to like actually like do like an excellent like to get it linked to other things. I'm glad
you're paying attention to what I was saying.
I'm 100% with you.
You are though, which is odd.
Yeah. But I was gonna say, like, I just feel like Wikipedia is great. The fact that I can go in and change stuff means it's probably not written by the best writers in the world. And I just want someone to write, like, once we've discovered this, like, can someone give me Maul's biography of any Star Wars character? Yeah. That's the one I want. I want one because I have like, his is the wildest journey in all of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like for 10 years he was like in a trash chute, like with mechanized legs or something, or like half a body, like just what,
like literally feeding off hate.
Yeah, for like a long time.
Yeah,
and then. Yeah, like years. And then, gets his legs, goes through all the, I guess I forget. Yeah, the Clone Wars, it's like he led the Mandalorians. He like, resurrected his brother, like, tried to recruit Ahsoka, then led this triumvirate, and then like was somehow that crumbled, and he was like, just alone on Malachor, and then, tries to have Ezra be an apprentice, and then ultimately finds his doom, where it started really with Obi-Wan. So, shnikes. Right. Yeah, I mean, and sorry, I mean, I missed the like Sith Lord part. I mean, just growing up and being trained as a Sith Lord under Palpatine, is wild.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Let's get that story.
I need it because I do not like it's. There's very few like elements or like different stories of Maul that I don't like. Like I like all of the stories we get of him, but it's my mind has trouble like putting together the pieces of this is all the same guy.
Yeah, totally. There's another reference like a cameo by Lieutenant Veers.
Oh, yep. I forgot
just
about that.
Just a random Veers drop in there for some reason.
Love it. Yep.
I forget which one Veers is, right? He becomes Admiral Veers.
Right. Yes. He's the one that survives. Like, is he the one that doesn't get just killed?
No, that's
like
Piet.
He's the one that's Piet.
Piet is the one that actually thrives, but Veers, I think, is Piet's predecessor.
Right? The one who does get okay.
I think he does get. He might be the one that gets choked out via Skype.
Yeah.
A little nod to the system we use here. since we're the only ones on it. Okay. Anything else from you? Sorry. I was like, do you have any ideas? Oh, here's 5.
No, this is great. I just also wanted to shout out the I again 95% of the Star Wars books I listen to on
Audio.
on book on tape. Actually, this was I'm getting better at like switching back and forth, which is I mean, I don't want to like, give free advertisement to whatever system I use, but they do synchronously, they do really well, a good job of connecting the audiobook with the reading, so you can switch back and forth. But Olivia Hack, who I'm not familiar with, and I don't know what she does, but she does the reading of this, and she sounds so much like
Amelia Clark.
like Amelia Clark that I was like, did they get Amelia Clark to read this book? Like, it's really dead on. And then I was just like, no, because she's doing way too much voices, which is like nothing against Amelia Clark. I think is a wonderful actor, but I don't think she has that. I wouldn't assume that she would have that range of doing voices, like impersonations, because she does Proxima, and it sounds just like I think Linda Hunt did the Proxima voice in Solo. Like, it sounds just like Proxima, and I'm like, it's wild. It was really, she did such a wonderful job of it. Just sounded great.
I mean, good voice actors can kind of hit whatever pitch you need them to do. I would have loved if it's Amelia Clark. Crush is like too strong a word, but just like bewitched. I think there's something about her. She's just so classy and so sweet, and I love watching her and everything.
She's super winning in everything, and like I like to watch like post Game of Thrones Amelia Clark, where she plays like very very different characters from like all of her names. Literally, she has 50 names in that, and that's all of escaped me. But like, and I think she's really great in Game of Thrones, and given the thankless task of the final season, and does it great.
No, she was great the whole way through. Really powerful scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an epic. I mean, I liked her in Invasions as well. She was fantastic in that.
Yeah. I mean, Secret Invasion. She was. We won't, especially since Grant's not here. We won't go into that series.
But I liked her character. I just like her.
But she is really good in that. Like, I think she is not my issue with that. I think she was really really good in that. She's also done like 3 romantic comedies in the past like 2 years, and I think I watched 2 of those on a dreary Saturday night with my wife, and I'm like, super charming, super winning. Like, just.
But really my favorite will always be Solo with her. I just like it.
Me too.
I mean, I love Game of Thrones, and I love the books, I love the shows, and watch them cult-like with friends, like that sort of tier. But there's just something. She's just so charismatic in Solo, and it's like she is special.
To go back to what we were saying earlier, is just to go from a character that like literally her role is to be the romantic connection to Han that can never work out. To then like leave him in the lurch at the end of this movie, and to still be like, she's good though.
Like, she's a real one.
She's real. She's good. But again, Game of Thrones, I will just say, to take Khaleesi's story, like I remember watching it. I watched it in real time, and I had never read the book, so I had no idea what was coming. And to watch that character in the first season be like a perpetual victim, like horrible victim, and then have this triumphant rise at at the end of the first season, right when she gets
the eggs
burned alive and the eggs hatch. And it's like, that's amazing. And then you fast forward to her just being like the breaker of chains and all of those things. Is just shows the range that actor has. And by all of those different characterizations and that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. What an epic, man. I can't imagine being on a show like that. It's just like, what are you doing for the next 10 years of your life? Like,
and how old was she when that started?
I don't know.
Like 18, maybe?
That's the other thing that I can't get over, and it must be like the thing that actors think about the most. It's like the clock is always ticking on you. And it's just like, I'm only going to look like this for so long, and I need to maximize my time, especially the guys that are like getting super swole, but especially like female actors that are just like, all right, like, I need to look a certain way, to be in mainstream media all the time. So and then to give like 10 of your solid years to like one thing is wild, though. I mean, she'll live on forever with
Well,
that series. I think.
and to be able to do that and then have a successful career afterwards. Like so many people, I mean,
Yes.
Mark Hamill is like the poster boy
Right.
for typecasting, who's now having a moment at age
Yeah.
something or whatever.
Have you seen The Machine yet? I haven't.
No, I keep meaning to watch it. Mostly for him. I mean, Bert
Yeah.
Kreischer's also funny, but like that, I'm so fascinated to see who's playing in that. And like, he was on. You clued me in, and he hasn't been able to talk about it on social media forever. But the Fall of the House of Usher, right? He's
Oh,
supposed
it
to
was
be wonderful in that.
fantastic. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was so good in that. And it's like he's one of those actors that it's like you can't like he's a bad guy, but he's like you can't give him a gruesome end. He just like no one wants to do that to Mark Hamill. So it's
right.
like
Yeah,
you know,
it's Mark
oh
Hamill.
he's
But
he's
like,
so great in that.
but not
yeah.
giving up the voice acting. I mean, like his like the Joker on the Batman anime series was his like
Yeah.
savior for a lot of years. He couldn't get on screen acting gigs, and he's always like anytime I hear the Joker, whenever I read the Joker
Yeah.
in a comic, it's Mark Hamill's voice, and
Yeah.
and he's still doing it, right? He's in the Masters of the Universe. He plays Skeletor in the Masters of the Universe series right now.
He's done this like evolution into like all these new things because he's like a different actor now, but it's like a different character.
Yeah,
I think he wasn't in a lot of stuff because he didn't need to be. I mean, he was probably had to be stupid rich after this.
It is, but you hear him tell it. People were not giving him calls, right? It really wasn't until Last Jedi that he.
But I mean, like,
finally...
didn't he get a chunk of change enough? Like,
oh yeah, I mean,
from Star Wars.
I don't think he was hurting financially, right? Like, I don't think he was ever like going bankrupt, but like,
right.
He had some years that he was not happy because he loves acting.
Yeah.
He wanted to act, and no one was calling him. He was like in the Guyver movies in the late '90s or mid '90s. Don't look it up; they're bad. I watched them a ton when I was working at the.
Did you say MacGyver?
No, just the Guyver. So take out the Mick off of it. It was a weird superhero movie. They're not good. Based on a comic, I think, but I watched them a ton when I was like 14 through 16 because I'm like, it's the only other Mark Hamill I can watch post Star Wars. But then, like, The Last Jedi showed that he had the acting chops, and once that happened, the dam broke, and he got these calls. Like, he's really a wonderful one-off spot on What We Do in the Shadows. One of the funniest things I've ever seen him do, and just so good. But like, I love that he still does the voice acting. Like, I will, watching a ton of cartoons now with my kid, and it's just like every time I watch a new series, I'm like, when's Mark Hamill going to show up? Oh, it's episode 5. Oh, it's episode 6. Like, he just is there. Like, he just loves the voice acting. It's wonderful. But the baseball back to Emilia Clarke, right? Very similar. She didn't have to have this fallow period waiting to come back. Like, she's in all of these major things, which is great, and doing tons of diverse types of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we did some good work on this book. It's great. I'm looking. I'm sorry.
I have one more. I have breaking news.
Okay.
Therm Scissorpunch's full name is Thermoculus.
Yes.
Krisintvolt Scissorpunch.
Krisintvolt. Huh. I never would have taken him for a Krisintvolt, but good.
Yeah.
Anyway, like, we all. Need. I mean, is that according to Wikipedia, or is it just?
It is. It's. I mean, Thermoculus is like. Yeah. How are we not always calling him Thermoculus Scissorpunch? Like, we don't need the middle name, but Thermoculus Scissorpunch. He will always be to me.
He only lets his friends call him Thermoculus. It's Therm to everyone else. Therm Scissorpunch. I think that's just like the tail wagging the dog at this point. They're like
yes.
No one is watching Therm Scissorpunch's like Wikipedia page, so I'm just gonna make him be whatever he wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's rad. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up because this was a great time. I am, like I said, looking forward to hearing what Grant has to say.
Me too.
About this novel, because I think this is right up his alley, and they do a lot of Grant things that Grant likes are going to happen here for him. So
absolutely.
That'll be fun. I think next week we're covering a couple comics.
Yeah. We can do. I think right now we actually have a couple that are open to us. So why don't we finish the Yoda series?
Okay.
Which is a couple of short runs, but issues 4 to 10. And then how about the Darth Vader Black, White, and Red?
Oh, yes, that'll be
series,
good.
Which is each one, if you're curious, if you haven't read it, it's definitely worth writing. This is a thing they do in comics now. The reason it's called Black, White, and Red is because it's literally only those 3 colors in the panel, which is amazing, especially with Vader, because you get his eyes and other stuff and his lights as red, and his lightsaber, obviously. But they're little anthologies written by multiple different writers that you normally don't get on this. And we'll talk about more next week. But one of the writers on this they were able to springboard off of this into writing another miniseries for Star Wars, which we'll talk about. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Which I'm super excited about.
So yeah, super fun comics for next week. Plus maybe we'll do a little news roundup. There's a couple little bits and bobs.
Stuff's dribbling out now.
Feige
the
and
strikes are off. Yeah.
So there'll probably be some more stuff there. So we'll talk about that next week. Thanks very much for joining us at the bar and Cantina Chronicles. And we'll talk to you next week on
Cantina Chronicles.